Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Zadov's Chess Channel, and welcome to the Opera Euro Rapid Chess Tournament in 2021. We're back now in the quarterfinal stage. We're now back in the derby of the day. It's, of course, Magnus Carlsen versus Daniil Dubov. Daniil Dubov lost the first match game against Magnus yesterday with a clear result. It was 2 wins for Magnus, only 1 draw. Daniil Dubov managed to get against the world champion. It was really time now for Daniil Dubov to make something happen. He has now to win the second match game in order to make it to the additional games. The first game of the second match game ended in a draw. I think it was a fair draw. It was a dynamic game. Now Magnus Carlsen played here with the white pieces and Daniil Dubov with the black pieces. Be prepared. This is, I think, the sharpest game that we have seen so far in this super match between Magnus Carlsen and Daniil Dubov. So here Magnus opened with move e4. Daniil responds with e5. We have knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4. So far the Italian game, really common stuff, one of the most often played openings. We have knight to f6, the two knight defense. We have now opportunities maybe to go into the knight's attack with knight to g5, but again we see now by Magnus Carlsen a calm line, a pragmatic way to go into this game, because he plays now d3. He doesn't want to complicate things. He doesn't want to go again into sharp tactics against such a great tactician like Daniil Dubov. And we have now h6, again a similar move order like in the game yesterday, preventing this move bishop to g5. Then after bishop to g5, knight to c3, knight to d5 would be sort of an idea to occupy really this main square. From black perspective, occupy the weak d5 square. We have now knight to c3 played by Magnus, and many times you see in the Italian game this setup c3 castling, then rook to e1, knight to d2, knight to f1, and knight to g3. This is the main setup, and here Magnus deviates from the yesterday's game. He plays the move knight to c3. The problem is now that you can get pinned by the bishop on b4. Of course, the knight on c3 is more natural. It's a better square for the knight, but of course then you're vulnerable to the spin like Daniil Dubov played now in the game. We have now castling played by Magnus, and Daniil Dubov goes immediately bishop takes c3. Okay, after b takes c3, let's stop and evaluate the position a little bit. The pawn structure is messed up. Still, of course, Magnus Carlsen has the bishop pair, and the good thing about this bishop pair is that this bishop pair can get activated. Sometimes when we continue the game with the bishop pair, then the bishops have troubles. If you have followed maybe now the game between Vachier-Lagrave and Jan Krzysztof Duda, similar thing happened where Jan Krzysztof Duda continued with the bishop pair, but it was not such a good bishop pair. Here in this particular case, it's still playable because the bishop still has this diagonal in order to activate, and here also bishop to a3 is also a nice opportunity. So this bishop on c1 is not a bad bishop. Bishop on c4 is perfectly fine. It's always a nice attacking formation. So far it would be a good bishop pair, but still you have to take care of first of your messed up pawn structure, because in long terms this c3 is a weakness, and also the weak c2 pawn could be an object of black's attack. So castling played by Daniil Dubov, bishop to b3. Magnus improves his bishop, because in some occasions you see knight to a5, then knight to b3 could happen, and then you could play a takes b3, opening here the a file, play something like bishop to e3. This would be then our main target, the weak a7 square. Here d6 was played, and now knight to d2. Very nice move by Magnus Carlsen, because he didn't want to get pinned again with bishop to g4. Then the queen would be always a little bit stuck here. And if you try h3 in order to kick away the bishop, then you have to, I think, even play g4, and that would be risky to play, because then you're messing up the pawn structure in front of the king. So very nice idea here by Magnus. Knight to d2. We have now d5 by Daniil Dubov, and now e takes d5. You have to take here, I think, because if you don't take, if you don't react, then after a potential d takes e4 and knight to e4, knight to e4, d takes e4, you see then the pawn structure is split here. Then you have really some problems. The weak c2 pawn and c3 pawn will be even further exposed. Here e takes d5, knight to d5, and now Magnus uses now the new square on the board. It's of course the weak e4 square. f5 would be very risky, because you're opening then the long diagonal here against the king. So here Daniil Dubov tried to get rid of first of the bishop, and here Magnus found now a great attacking possibility. Pause the video and try to see now really a beautiful tactic. It's not a tactic that wins the game immediately, but I think it's a tactic that gives white a slightly advantage. And of course, Magnus, when he has around 1 point advantage when it comes to computer evaluations, then it's really hard to beat the world champion. Pause the video, take your time, find out the best tactic. It's really a tactical sequence. It's an incredible tactical sequence then that Magnus Carlsen saw in rapid chess. It's really incredible what he saw here. Okay, I hope you can find could find this move. It's really incredible move. I'm not sure if I would ever consider even this move. Here Magnus played an outstanding bishop takes d5, and the problem is now this move order: queen to d5. Everything is pretty much forced. Bishop to h6. You see now after g takes h6, you risk the fork. Knight to f6 will happen, and the queen gets trapped. So in order to make something happen, you have to kick away the knight. f5. But look what Magnus saw: c4, kicking away the queen. Queen to c6 has to be played. Now two pieces are hanging, but now we have a nice move: bishop to d2. And after f takes e4, we have bishop takes a5. We have queen to g6. Here the threat is of course bishop to h3, and Magnus plays now simply queen to e2. And here you see, it's not that this move order is winning, it's simply that Magnus grabbed the pawn. Magnus has now good activity. Magnus still has the opportunity to activate his bishop here, bishop to c3, attacking the pawn on e5, and now Daniil Dubov goes rook f4. Here comes already all Daniil Dubov's now play. Of course, we always know that Dubov is a sharp attacker, and here Magnus Carlsen makes his first blunder in the game. He plays the move bishop to d2, and this move bishop to d2 gives now Daniil Dubov a nice game. It's a much better evaluation here for black. f3 was actually the best move. After something like e takes f3, then we can play rook to f3, and if you try for instance bishop to g4 in order to pin, then rook to g3, we can counterattack and also trap the queen. Magnus unfortunately didn't see his second tactical sequence. He played bishop to d2, and pause the video and again maybe find now a great and sharp line for Daniil Dubov. So okay, you don't have to, of course, retreat with the rook. The best way when you get attacked is to find a counterattack. Here Daniil Dubov found bishop to g4. We have now f3, but it comes a little bit too late because now we have bishop to f3, queen to f2 was played by Magnus Carlsen, and suddenly, as we said, Daniil Dubov is the one that has now a comfortable game. So after Magnus queen to f2, Daniil Dubov simply continued to push here with the move rook to g4. You see now that g2 is a clear target. Black is winning here in this sequence. We have g3, now rook to f8. You see the attacking harmony by Daniil Dubov. Every piece gets into the attack. Rook from a to e1, rook to f6. We have d takes e4, but it's a little bit too late. The queen comes now very active into the game. We have now even some threats: rook to g6, and then maybe rook takes g3, sacrifice, and then queen to h1 is of course the serious threat. Rook to e3. Magnus is trying to get rid of the bishop, and now bishop to e4. A new great move by Daniil Dubov. He can of course play whatever he likes. It's such a great game because of this one inaccuracy by Magnus. We have bishop to e4, queen to e2, and now a very nice tactical shot: rook takes g3, and in this position Magnus Carlsen resigned. What to do here? If you try rook takes g2 or rook takes g3, then you lose the queen. If you try here to take out with the pawn, then you get here queen to h1. It's checkmate. So wild stuff. You see, I've said it before, it's unclear what's going to happen in this match game. Daniil Dubov will find his way when he has attacking opportunities. Here I think it was an outstanding game by Magnus Carlsen until this move bishop to d2. Really wild stuff. As I said, this is not over. Daniil Dubov will get his chances. I'm sure that Magnus Carlsen is frustrated because of this. He found this sharp line, he found this great tactic, but then afterwards he played some dubious move and got punished. The game was over only after 26 moves. So be prepared. This is wild. This is not going to be over immediately. Daniil Dubov has now great advantage. I think we'll see even this additional games in this match game. be prepared. I'm going to cover, of course, some more games, and the continuation, as I said, great game by both of them. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really wild stuff. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage so far. Here's the link. And if you want to see also some other content, check out my commented chess games played by computers and also the best chess games of all times. Here are the links. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.